Hey, my sweet Kit Kats, Keli-Kat here. Let's go ahead and upcycle this beautiful cutting board I purchased at the store called Ollie's, and we have one very close to us here in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. So I picked up several of these. They are priced right, let me tell you. And right now I'm going ahead and painting several layers of a moss chalk paint by Waverly. It's one of my favorite greens. I do love the natural look of the cutting board, and we're going to bring some of that back a little bit later by distressing it some. But I thought we would play around just a little bit with some Crackle, some Chippy, and all the good things to kind of age this board a bit, and then we're going to make it fall-like with some of those transfers that you see lying beside me. Just touching up a few areas there. I'm going to go ahead and dry this. I do end up putting on just a few coats of this. I wanted some pretty good coverage to start. And these are a perfect cutting board size, in my opinion, for making some beautiful fall decor for your home. Just speeding this up just a bit for that dry process. So I have put 2 additional layers of the moss chalk paint. And now we're going to come in here with several different colors. This is a folk art chalk paint called Sage Shadow. And I'm just kind of going here and there with it. I do end up doing this same process to the back side. Just in case this piece can be seen from both sides, I wanted that all completed. So it's going to look a little bit crazy initially, but trust the process, my sweet friends. Now I'm coming in with a paint couture color called Sunflower. And just adding that here and there also. It is a beautiful color that I haven't used too often. And again, the same thing, just here and there with a bronze Luxe Metallic from Paint Couture. So the Luxe Metallic Bronze and the Sunflower are available on my All Paint Products link. I've gone ahead and dried that really well, and we're going to apply the 1 component Crackle from Pentart. So available on my link to Decoupage Clean if you have any interest. The 1 component is basically sandwiched between 2 paint colors. So the base colors that we put down, now the Crackle medium, we're going to dry that well, and then we come in with our top color, which is typically a lighter color. I just like to make sure I have a good amount of that Crackle medium all over my board. So what I typically do when I'm not crafting on a live, I start the dry process with my heat tool, and then I will set it in front of my fan to continue the drying process. You just want to make sure that Crackle medium is nice and dry before you apply your next color. So everything is nice and dry. We're going to come in with this Cashew Chalk Paint by Waverly. Right over the top of that Crackle medium. I try not to go up and down with my brush strokes. Usually just in one direction, as you see there. And it is already starting to crackle beautifully before I've even applied any heat. The 1 component Crackle medium from Pentart is amazing. A little bit on the sides there and around those edges. And then again with that heat tool, just to encourage more crackle and get that nice and dry. You can see it happening right before your eyes. Ugh, I love that. So I decided I wanted some crackle. I wanted a chippy effect on this, so we are going to come in shortly here with some candle wax to help us create that chippy, kind of aged and worn look. So everything is nice and dry. I'm taking a neutral colored candle and just rubbing that wax wherever I think I might want some of that chippy look. And I'm coming back in with those same three colors, the Sunflower from Paint Couture, the Bronze Luxe Metallic from Paint Couture, and then the Sage Shadow from Folk Art Chalk Paint. And kind of doing that same process, just putting those colors down wherever your eye sees fit. To me, it's kind of a process of layering to achieve the look that I'm going for. We want to dry that really well. And then you're just going to need a little putty tool there that you just saw me pull out of my drawer. Once this is nice and dry, wherever we've applied that candle wax, we take our little putty tool there and we're going to be able to scrape some of that away, and that's what's going to give us that beautiful chippy look. And again, you just want to make sure it is nice and dry before you continue on, which mine is. So now we're coming in and just scraping away wherever you like. I like to really distress the edges here so we can see some of that original wood of the cutting board and some of the other colors that we've applied underneath there. And then some of the areas of that crackle I'm leaving alone, so we have kind of a good combination of both the chippy and the crackle. And while it is a bit messy, it is so worth it in my opinion. You can go in all different directions there. And then try to clean it off as best as you can. I went ahead and gave it a coat of Extreme Gloss top coat from Paint Couture and let that dry really well. And now we're going to come in with some of these beautiful transfers. Sunflower Afternoon is where several of these came from Redesign. So I've removed the backing of that particular transfer and laid it down where I wanted it. Use my little transfer tool there to start rubbing and hopefully releasing that transfer beautifully. You just start kind of pulling a corner very gently. Sometimes I need to have a little extra patience and just pull really slowly. And then I use that backing sheet just to go over and burnish down all the edges. Kind of deciding where I want that sunflower, and there's a small portion that's going to wrap around the side there. So I use my little transfer tool there first, and then go over the rest of it. If you start pulling up your piece and you notice that some of the transfer is still stuck to it, all you have to do is lie it back down and do a little more rubbing in that area. You'll see a little bit of that here shortly, just very slowly. It should go just that smoothly. For me, that is why I applied that top coat. I want to give my paint and all the things I've done underneath the best chance to stay lie down and not pull away when I'm pulling on that transfer. So I decided I do want some of the stem to that sunflower, but I didn't want the large leaves. So I'm just cutting the piece that I want, lying it down, and doing my rubbing with that transfer tool. And then burnishing all the little edges. The leaves are pretty. I thought it was just a bit too much here. So I actually take that extra piece of the stem and kind of create my own. You can definitely layer your transfers. And I slowed this section down just so you can kind of see exactly my thought process and what I do here. So feel free to fast forward. These cute little birds come from a transfer set from IOD that is called Winter Botanist. So I pulled a few of those that I thought went nicely with all of our fall colors. And as I'm starting to lift here, I notice there's a bit of my transfer that's sticking to that sheet. So here's where you just lie it back down and do a little more rubbing. You can also try pulling from another end of the transfer, if you will. Sometimes that helps, but just take your time and go slow. Which is exactly what I'm doing here. Just a little at a time. You might just have to put a little bit of elbow grease in some areas. This happens with transfers. No worries. Very slowly. And there we have it. Burnish down those edges. This is what we have so far. I thought this butterfly matched perfectly with all the colors. So I'm going to put that one a bit on an angle, and it wraps around the side of the cutting board just a bit. Comes off beautifully. I love how that is looking. And then I did pull some transfers here that you're going to see next from another IOD transfer set. I believe it's called Papillon. And these are gilded transfers. So I thought some butterflies in that beautiful gold might be just what we needed here. Just deciding on my placement, same process. Rubbing and then gently pulling and burnishing it down. They are so pretty. Even if you cut just small bits and bobbles from some of your scrap transfers or other sets that you have, you'd be surprised at how they can go together so nicely. Another little butterfly there on that stem. And I do decide to cut out this piece here, and we're going to actually use it in pieces just to add a bit more interest. I really like that putty tool to scrape back and let some of that natural wood of the cutting board show there, like you see on the handle and around the edges. It's exactly what I was going for here. So just kind of letting my eye be the guide to where I want to lie those extra little pieces of these transfers. They are so pretty. It's just the right amount of gold on this project. So don't be afraid to cut your transfers and use them in different ways. That one I'm wrapping around just a bit. And these transfers release beautifully. I will tell you that I did go ahead and seal over everything once I had all my transfers down with that same Extreme Guard gloss top coat from Paint Couture. But you can definitely seal with the sealer of your choice. A few last little pieces here. Just trying to have a nice balance of a little bit of that beautiful gold kind of here and there when you're looking at the piece. And sometimes if you have a little trouble finding the edge, I use my little Cricut tool there or something with a point on it that will help you lift it up and get started. So just a couple smaller pieces here. Felt like we were needing a little something by that butterfly. So that is what we have. I love how that's looking. We're gonna go ahead and make a messy rag bow here with our Bodabra, and I'm just putting a little piece of twine vertically in my Bodabra. And I have some fabric pieces here that I thought would go nicely with the colors. A little sari silk also. And just making a nice messy bow. This pretty little checkered yellow and all the strings and threads. I really like how that looks, and I could not believe I actually had one of some sunflowers there, so I had to use it. Just continuing on to make some loops. A bit more of that sari silk. I do get my sari silk on Etsy from a place called Felt Better, F-E-L-T, Felt Better. And I usually just get the ivory. I had a little leftover piece of this twine with these green leaves on it, and I thought that was perfect. And then I'm just tearing that last piece of the fabric with the sunflowers on it. We're going to go ahead and release that twine and tie our knot. I don't tie the knot until I've kind of fussied around with this a bit, and then I flip it over and tie my knot on the back to hold everything nicely together. Give it a good pull. We don't want it coming apart, snipping off those tails. And then here's where you can give it a bit of a haircut depending on how long you want your tails. If you want to kind of angle cut some of them, which is what I'm doing here. Just getting it exactly as I want it. I love messy bows because just as they say, messy is how they're supposed to look. I do have this beautiful Totally Dazzled bee in my stash. I'm going to glue that right to the center of that messy bow with a little stick fast there, which is basically a super glue, so you want to be very careful when you're using it. A few last adjustments there. I think that is so cute. I'm going to go ahead and glue it right around that area of the handle with a bit of stick fast as well as some hot glue on either side, just to make sure we have a good hold there. I am going to come in with some pieces of this lamb's ear right into the bow. I decide after kind of playing with it here, I didn't like it on the up or excuse me, on the top or bottom, so I integrate some of it right into that messy bow with just a bit of hot glue. The extra texture and the color I think is really pretty. And then just to kind of keep it soft and pretty, we are going to add some baby's breath in there, dried baby's breath that I get in a large package from Hobby Lobby. So I gather some of that together and go ahead and hot glue that also. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Snip my ends just a bit there and hot glue it in place. I think this turned out so pretty. What a beautiful piece of decor for your home, in your kitchen. Here's what it looks like completely done. Thank you guys so very much for watching. Take